Okay, we are live. I have the stream open in the other window, so as soon as it catches up to us, it's gonna talk. So I apologize for, yep, there it is. I can't pre-mute it. It's not an option. Anyway, welcome to this Snark Squad hangout thing that we're doing. There's a couple things that we had watched that we were like, maybe this would make for a good Snark Squad pod, but like like there wasn't enough there. Mm-hmm. So we're doing this thing. I assume that if you're here, you know who we both are, but just in case, I'm Nicole Sweeney, and I am the co-founder of SnarkSquad.com, and that's it. That's all you need to know about me.
Marinez. I'm the other co-founder of SnarkSquad.com, and that's my best friend over there.
That's it. That's all the facts about us. Hold on, I'm gonna retweet. We are live now. Okay, so where should we start?
Quarantine.
Yeah. So starting with how we're in quarantine. I feel like in the title for this, we specifically mentioned that we were going to talk about the book Big Friendship and the Babysitters Club Netflix thing. There's other stuff too, but it's also just this thing of like, we're consuming a lot of media, but it's also like mood driven. It's like super, super mood driven. So the idea of like the kind of planning and like intentional viewing and consumption that you have to do when we're going to podcast about this feels it's not where we're at.
And then, so we took a big break from podcasting when this all started. Like, we had a couple episodes recorded that took forever to edit and put out. So the last one that went out was one we recorded in May. And so once we published that, I was like, oh, cool. So we get to like pick a new thing to watch and talk about. But then also, as soon as I like thought that we had to do that, it was so overwhelming. So overwhelming to think about like planning media that way. And then I had the immediate thought of, we used to do this all the time. And not only all the time, like last year we were doing an episode weekly.
Yeah.
We're just picking media and watching it. And that is so far beyond my experience right now that it's hard to even like conceptualize that sort of
thing. We were doing like 1.5 a week.
Yes.
Who? How?
I don't know. So I don't know. And to Nicole's point, my like media consumption in general during this time has been all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know where I'm supposed to add to that. It's kind of been all over the place. And I guess I'm just going to like put it out there, make it super clear in case you have not already like caught on. We didn't really like put a lot of planning or a lot of thought. We're mostly just hanging out. We had like some vague stuff that we were going to talk about. We picked an evening time so that we could be drinking, or I put makeup on my face for the first time in who knows how long. I started to tell Mari this before we went live, and I was like, no, whatever, I'll save it. I'll tell you my pointless lipstick story once we're live. But I have this like bright blue, it's like this color lipstick that I really, really love, but I never actually wear because I don't ever do lipstick is always the last thing that I put on. And so I only ever think about it on days like today where like there's like a lot happening right here. And then I'm like, oh, the blue lipstick. And then I'm like, oh no, that's too much. Mm-hmm. And then I have to take it off. I forget that like if I'm going to do the blue lipstick, it's like the whole
the look. That is the look.
Goodbye, Phil. Thank you for coming to say hello. But yeah, anyway, there is no pointless lipstick story. Deboki, I'm here to prove you wrong. That was it. That was the whole story.
So another thing about quarantine and me is that Like the one thing at the very beginning that I said that I was going to do is like still get ready every morning. Like that was my one thing that I was doing for me to not like fall into like the pit of never getting out again. So every morning I get up and I mean, I'm not like putting on like full and like jeans, but I get dressed and I like comb my hair. And then now recently that I'm getting back into like doing media and doing videos or whatever, I will put on makeup when I'm recording a video. So my bosses, my new bosses have been like, "Woo, look at you. Wow, you're like doing great. You're taking this seriously." And I'm like, "Sure am."
Yeah.
Recorded in Unhaul.
No, that was not me. I was like, that was very much like the opposite of that. Like that was not, that fell by the wayside almost immediately. I shouldn't say not quite immediately, because the first couple weeks, like my thing was always, I only ever wash my hair after I work out, because like when I was running marathons and stuff, like I was running a lot. So I was running enough that meant I was washing my hair like 4 or 5 times a week. That was fine. Like I didn't like, that was like a sufficient boundary for that if anything, I was washing my hair too much, to be perfectly honest. So like that was like my line. And when we first went into quarantine, I ran after work almost every day for the first few weeks. And then at some point, I just stopped going outside altogether.
Yes.
And then it was bad.
When you start running again, it's going to be bad.
Yeah, I did actually this past week. What is time? Yeah, Monday. I was like, when did I run for the first time in like weeks? It was this Monday, and it was bad. It was hard. It was hard. My legs were like, what is this? We don't do this anymore.
But for me, it would have been getting ready, where I would have to do it again, and it'd be like crying, like, this is hard.
I forgot how to be presentable and shower. So anyway.
Yeah, so that's like, I don't know, living in quarantine. I mean, there's a lot more to living in quarantine. We both live alone, so which is like its own like whole ordeal. But then, like, I lost my job at the beginning of quarantine. So, you know, I was suddenly faced with all of this extra time and then zero will to make anything. Zero will to consume anything, make anything. Like, it was awful. And awful in that way that, like, obviously these are things that I enjoy, like watching TV and, like, making stuff about. So, like, I wasn't doing that stuff that I enjoy, but also, like, the guilt on top of it, not I don't know, guilt is the right word, but like I always think like, oh, all the Snark Squad stuff I would do if I had more time. And then suddenly it was like, here's more time. And I was like, oh, not this time. No. This is not the kind of time I needed. Like,
yeah, this isn't what I meant when I said more time. Because now I'm just like sad all the time, and I'm wondering how I'm going to pay my rent, and like none of that is. It's not like all of that. We have talked about this a lot, but like that takes up a lot of like time and energy, like thinking about that shit. So
that was my full-time job, was like worrying.
Yeah. Funny because it's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, thanks for joining us. Oh, hi, Nate. I feel that time thing so hard. Oh my gosh, so many friends. Okay, so that's quarantine. You guys know about it. You're familiar with its work.
Also in it.
Big friendship or Babysitters Club?
We can start with Babysitters Club because I'm going to admit right away that I forgot like 90% of what I watched with the Babysitters Club.
Me too.
Okay, great.
But here's what I do remember.
General impressions I still have.
Joy. The general impression was like happiness in my heart that I experienced while watching that show.
okay, so backing up again, if you're here, friends, you know who we are. But when we started the blog 2011, we started it. It was not Snark Squad. We started it under the name Childhood Trauma. And the whole like premise was that we were going to go back and read the books that we were reading when we were children as adults, and we were writing recaps and snarking it. So Babysitter's Club was one of like the first things that we were recapping on the blog. Yeah, so it's like deeply rooted in like Snark Squad nostalgia as well as like childhood nostalgia, and then like also our friendship nostalgia. So when like the Babysitter's Club Netflix came out, like it was like an immediate, I'm gonna watch that, obviously. Yeah, and it really, I think it surprised me with how good it was and how joyful it made me.
Yeah, and it felt, I felt like there was a really good amount of things that activated all of my like big nostalgic feelings. Claudia's entire bedroom, just everything about Claudia's bedroom was like perfect for I read these books for the first time 20 years ago. More than that, like 20. I don't want to do that math. I don't like that. I don't enjoy that. But like all of those feelings, while also still feeling like something that I could see like an 11-year-old girl now watching and being like, oh, this is fun for me. So that was really nice and cool. I also have to say, I have a lot of like complicated feelings about those old recaps, the old Babysitter's Club recaps. Like they're dear to my heart because they are the thing that, you know, that like it's the first thing that we did on Snark Squad. And I think that the like positive way of looking at it is that, and I feel this, like I'm not just saying this like as lip service. I feel this sense of, you can see like the journey that we went on with this blog. If you go back and you read the old stuff, that like you can see the ways in which
Please don't go back and read
when we do it, when we look at it, we can see that. You shouldn't. We don't want you to do that. But when we go back and look, we can see like that progression and all of that. I feel like we've learned a lot about how we talk about media and stuff over the years, and just like, I don't know, we're better writers now than we were 10 years ago. Almost, it'll be 10 next year, right? Yes. Yeah. Yes, 2011.
The thing that gets me like the most about like looking at those old recaps, and like the whole thing was like, oh, we're gonna read this stuff now that we're adults. and we were adults technically, I guess. But now 10, how many years on? Not 8?
10. 10, well, 9.5. We're at like 9.5 now.
Oh my God. 9.5 years on. Wow. Even like actually more adults now. I look back and I'm like, first of all, you were also a child. Second of all, like the point from which we were addressing it feels so different to like what we do now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like snarky. It was, I don't know. It was a different thing. And I think that the biggest way that I see the difference is now that we're watching DCOMs, which is also like children's media. There is such a different feeling to what we're doing and how we're approaching it, and like letting it be children's media and criticizing it because some of it is bad, but also just like, I don't know, understanding more about what it's meant to do, and then also having more fun with it and just being like, this is bad. That's fine. Let's move on. Or, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. That when we started Cooler Than Homework, that was the thing that like almost immediately was the most striking, was that I expected that we were going to be doing basically a podcast version of what the early recaps were. Like that was kind of what I had got, like that was in my head what I thought we were going to be creating. And almost immediately I was like, no, we're actually doing, like, even though like the first movie I hated, but I still, the way that something that, honestly, like some of it is that, you know, like time and like we have changed and all of that. I will also say that some of it was talking to Sari and Matt too, and it was like there's a way in which, I don't know, you like everybody's bringing their own energy to that experience. And so their energy also, I think, had like played a big role in why the thing ended up being different than the thing that like we maybe had in our heads at the beginning. But like listening to both of them talk about like how much fun Sari, I think, was the one who liked that first movie the most, maybe. I'm forgetting now, but like they both clearly had more fun with the experience than we did. And there was something about that I was like, oh, we're doing a different thing here, but I get it now. Yeah, no, I can do that.
I feel like I took so many more notes on that first movie, and then after the first episode, I was like, this is not.
That was the thing we kept coming back to. Sarah was like, I didn't take any notes. I was like eating cookies, and like, oh, okay, I get it.
The like other like big thing that makes me like, oh my gosh, the way that this has grown and the way that we have changed, I feel like, as recappers, is Christy Thomas as a character.
Yep. That's ultimately that's where I was headed. We took a detour, but yes. Yes. I feel like, yeah, so the thing that makes me the uncomfortable piece of it, right? So there's all those like nostalgic, like happy feelings about the old Babysitters Club recaps, but like there are a number of things that are just like really, really cringy. And it's not just the bad, like writing being bad, like that I can get over. Like that to me is not that big of a deal. But there are just like, I don't know, opinions and hot takes that I had at 23 that I'm now like, ooh, no. that was a bad one. Like, take that back. Mm-hmm. And then now it's weird too, because there's a little bit of an element of like not knowing what to do with that stuff. Like we have, over the years, I think we made light edits to one Buffy the Vampire Slayer post from like old days, the hyena episode, I think. And like it's like when we started, and like you're republishing a lot of the Twilight recaps with like light, you know, it's some years have passed and I'm making better choices. Yeah, I'm sure, Nate, 43 instead of 23, I'm sure that like in another 10 years I'll be like, I had some hot takes at 32. Bad. Like I expect that's going to happen.
Hopefully, I hope that's going to happen. That you like keep growing and you look back and you're like, wow, my hot takes. You know, I learned a bunch. So it's like fine that we learned a bunch, but we also learned a bunch very publicly.
Yeah. Specifically, I'm like, I haven't actually explicitly said it. Specifically, I was really mean to Christy Thomas, a fictional child, and I just feel weird about it now. Like on the one hand, I feel
she's kind of awful.
She's really annoying. Yeah, okay, she's a child, but like also, every one of her books begins by making sure that we know that it was all her idea. And like when you're recapping them, like this is also just like the nature of recapping, right? But so, you know, reading all of the books like in succession like that. And so I know, okay, here comes another Christy book. Like it's going to begin with a whole chapter about how it was all her idea. And like that kind of thing.
She was also like not great to her friends and like very self-centered, and I mean, she's not a great character, which, like, I went back and forth because the show started and I was like, oh my gosh, we were so mean to her. And then the next episode, I would be like, she's awful. That's why. The next episode, I would be like, oh, baby, she's a child. So I went on a whole journey while watching the adaptation.
I came around on her pretty quick. Like not immediately. Like, I was like, okay. I can see hints of like what made her so annoying, but also there's like an actual human child now, and that really contextualizes all of that. So anyway, all of that to say that I liked Netflix Christy Thomas much better than book Christy Thomas. Mm-hmm. So
I understood Netflix Chrissy Thomas a lot more, I feel like, because the show kept putting her in situations where I was taking her side, particularly above her mother, where it was like, your mom's doing a bad job parenting you. So I can't even blame you for being like a little shit right now because your mom should be handling this better.
Doing a better job. I just, Cher really disappointed in her work as a parent on this show. Yeah, there are a couple, specifically this, again, like, not remembering the show, most of what I watched that well. There's a bunch of things, a lot of it is lost to me. I guess spoilers incoming for the Netflix Babysitters Club TV show. But there's the episode where she gets married. The fact that she was going to leave on her honeymoon without like finding her daughter to say goodbye to her. Like the last time that they spoke, the last conversation that they had was apparently that morning before they got married, that she had not once like pulled her aside to chat with her. After that, the fight.
It's played in the episode as this big emotional moment when she stops and runs back. But, like, bitch, you were at the gate. You were about to leave.
She was gone.
Like, 1 second more, you just would have left your child for, who knows how long without having a conversation. Cher, really? Is this who we've become?
And especially because the whole fight was totally her fault in the first place. Like that was also a thing. Like the argument that they had that morning. Like you are not mad at Christy. You are mad at Watson. Like the whole issue was the dress that Christy had accepted, this very expensive dress that like made her feel pretty. And that's also, I don't know, it's like a thing. Like Christy doesn't really wear dresses, but she was wearing a dress for her mom's wedding, and like this was a dress that she wore that made her feel good. And like Watson offered to pay for it after having previously bought her brother a car. And I get that Cher's mad that Watson's like throwing money around or whatever, but like that's not on Christy for accepting it. Like that's a you and Watson problem. Like that's not a Christy problem.
Right.
So
yeah, I did watch it. Like I watched the first bit of it and then I stopped watching, but then I had my nieces over and they were watching it. So that's how I caught on to the like second half of the season, and they loved it. So it definitely is something like one of those media experiences that it was like, oh my gosh, like having nostalgia for the books that I read when I was a kid, but also now watching it with my nieces and talking to them about it. So it was like very, I don't know, it was very, very neat.
I didn't realize you watched it with them. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. I know. Cry. First tears of the live show.
I love it. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Imagining. Yep. Any other thoughts on Babysitter's Club? What else you got?
No, it's Snark Lady approved that adaptation. Really,
I loved the whole camp plotline. I enjoyed the I don't know, like they were basically trying to get the campers to unionize. That was great. Like that was a really
the ways that they updated it, I felt were great, really smart and seamless. It didn't feel like, I don't know, it didn't feel heavy-handed or like, sometimes when things are updated that way, it feels cheesy, like they're trying too hard to like be up with the times. And I don't think I necessarily felt that. It just felt pretty natural.
As soon as you said that, my first thought was when a couple of years ago, they redid the covers.
Yes.
And those absolutely like were like the bad way. The new covers were so weird.
Wasn't it like
a cupcake on Stacey's first book, her first book cover.
Like Stacey and there's like a cupcake. She's diabetic. What are you doing?
Oh man. Well, yeah, those were bad, but this I felt like it did all of that stuff in a really like good and thoughtful way. There was something else I was going to say, but it has left my brain, so
bye.
Doesn't matter.
Goodbye, thought.
Goodbye to that thought. Okay, well, you want to talk about Big Friendship then?
Yes.
You
The
start.
so I have a Book of the Month subscription. That's where I'll start. And
Sorry, wait, I have to stop. I would never use my own book for money on them, but I would steal my sister's copies and read them. That's amazing. That's delightful. I have them because I uh, begged my mom to subscribe to. There was like a like Babysitters Club, and I guess it was like my first book box. Yes, Babysitters Club, and every month they sent 4 books and some like little like trinkety thing with the 4 books. But I got 4 Babysitters Club books a month for like 1 through 100, and I got all the first 100 books all came that way. I was a member for however many months that amounts to. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read them same as Nate because my sister had copies and I stole them. And my sister is 4.5, almost 5 years older than I am. So she was very snotty about it. And she's like, "You're not old enough to read the Babysitters Club." So I would have to sneak them and read them. Like literally the trope of reading at night with a flashlight under the covers was me, because she would not let me read them otherwise. And we didn't have them in any kind of order. Our library was totally a found library. I don't know how we ended up with half the books. I mean, probably she stole them from her like school library. I don't know how we ended up with these books. So we had like a few of the early ones, a few of the super specials where they like went to camp or did other vacations and stuff. So like my reading history with the Babysitters Club is super patchy, super patchy.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I am fairly certain that I read like basically all of them. Like I don't know how, like I wasn't super committed to the idea of like the sequential thing, but like that it was like an exciting whatever, for that 2 years of my life where I was getting 4 books a month. I was like hell yeah, it's Babysitters Club book day. My moment has come.
So before, like Jordan said, she never read them, and Allie said she stole her older sister's books as well, which I love. But when we started recapping, we were doing Sweet Valley High, Babysitter's Club, Goosebumps, The Boxcar Children, and Nancy Drew Files.
Drew, yeah.
So those are the ones that we started with. And I'm just curious, like, if anybody has read any of those or, like, what you were reading as children. Because we went back and forth with a lot of, like, what should we be covering on the blog when we started. And that's kind of where we landed. And we each had, like, our own.
There were 5 of us in the beginning. And, like, that was what we had read. Like, so, like, we had that was, like, that common ground between the 5 of us that we were like, okay, well, this is.
I read these.
You did too? Okay, cool. Babysitter's Club, that was, like, I got lucky because I hadn't read enough of the other stuff, and so that was part of it, because everybody in our group had read Babysitter's Club. Like that was the one that was like a universal, but I was like, I read Goosebumps. I had read some Sweet Valley High, but like only a couple. So I lucked into being able to do Babysitter's Club.
I had not read Nancy Drew, and so but I was like, okay, lots of people have read Nancy Drew, so I'll do it. It's fine. But Nancy Drew has been around forever, and also it's been like it goes through cycles, like reinventions. And I was like, I don't know, what were people reading my like age, and I figured it was the ones from the 1980s. Phenomenal. The 1980s, Nancy Drew, the covers, the style, the fashion. I don't know if that's what kids my age were reading, or if they were reading older versions, not the ones being currently published, but man, amazing.
The only Nancy Drew book that I had as a kid was an older one. It was like a gift from a teacher, an elementary school teacher, but it was I'm like blanking on the name of it, but there's an actual shot recreation of the cover in the CW Nancy Drew, the staircase, the hidden staircase, which was like an old like original series book.
Yes. I have that somewhere up there. Boxcar Children, yeah. So it's like pretty. I don't know. It's Julie B. Jones' Magic Treehouse. Shiloh. I feel like, Jordan, that's younger than us.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what those things are. So.
A ton of Judy Blume. I read so much Judy Blume. And then I tried to read it again just like several years later as a like true teen versus like a preteen, and I was so embarrassed. Like reading Judy Blume, I was like, what is this? Like, and I never went like that.
Judy, what are you doing?
Judy, why? I could never recap Judy Blume books. I could not do it.
Too much.
Too serious, too much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Mary-Kate and Ashley Wishbone series. Interesting. I had a lot of the Mary-Kate and Ashley like VHS tapes, but no, I don't think I ever had any of the books. I remember seeing the books, but did not own any books. Sweet Valley High. Yeah. Boxcar was the only one of the ones that we originally recapped that I had never heard of. That I was like, that just like had completely escaped, like missed that one entirely until it was presented as an original childhood trauma.
Truly, because those kids were homeless and nobody cared. It was very intense revisiting those. But yeah, it looks like we were all pretty much on the same page. All right. Back to my book of the month subscription. So I picked this one. When was this? In July. I just read the description and it was about friendship, and I had no idea that the authors actually have their very own very popular podcast. So I was like, look at this book about friendship I'm reading, Nicole. And she's like, those are the hosts of Call Your Girlfriend. And I was like,
Call Your Girlfriend. And you're like,
I don't know what you're talking about. It's a nonfiction book about friendship. So I started reading it. I tabbed up a whole bunch of stuff here because it is about these two women who are best friends, and they start making content together. So and they're also, it's like an interracial best friendship. They meet in their 20s, and they're now like on opposite sides of the US. And I was like, that sounds familiar. So I read this and I had a lot of feelings, and I was like, I don't think I like asked you to read it, but I kept sending you quotes and you were like, oh yeah, okay, I'll read it. So we both read it.
Yeah, I listened to it on audio, which I think, so when you did your review, you talked about some of the things that like didn't work for you. And I will say that I think there are some, like, I kind of regret listening to it rather than like reading the physical copy, because there were like quotable moments that, like, that stuff is just so much harder to like hold on to when you're listening to it rather than reading a physical copy. I tried to get a physical copy. I basically got ghosted by a local indie bookstore. I bought a bunch of books from in quarantine. They know my name when I walk in. I emailed about this book like a month ago and was like, hey, can you, like, basically as soon as you started reading it, like you hadn't finished it yet. And I was like, cool, I'm going to order this book. And I ordered it, and they emailed me to say, yep, I'm on it. And I never heard from them again. So I finally just bought the audiobook and listened to it that way. And I will say, one of the things that you mentioned in your review was the decision to write it in we fashion and like third person, like talk about themselves in the third person, was helped in audio. I think I didn't really notice it like at all, because you notice it in the very, very beginning and like the intro, prologue, whatever. But once they get into it, they're reading each other, the stuff about each other. So like it doesn't feel, you don't feel the absence of I in quite the same way. So that's my like slight recommendation for also, like, you know, knowing them as podcast hosts first. There's like, yes, this is what I expect you to do, is be in my ears.
Here.
Here.
Yeah, so I had I don't know, mixed is kind of a strong word. I enjoyed this and I would recommend it. I really enjoyed a lot of the ideas in here. I think that I enjoyed the pieces of it that were more memoir about their friendship versus like some of the other like larger stuff about friendship. Like some of it was really informative and cool, but I don't know. I guess my feeling was that those portions could have probably been written better by somebody else versus the portions that were memoir that were very specific to them. Like nobody else could have told that story. Was kind of the feeling that I left with. The way that they presented just like the facts and the research was kind of bland to me, for lack of a better word. But it's still, the overall was still like a book that I really enjoyed, and that obviously like I had a lot of feelings about because it was about friendship, and not only friendship but like, you know, big friendship, this idea of there being like essential people in your life. So yeah, I just, the number of times that I was reading it, I was like, oh no, Nicole. And, and it was like, you know, we're sitting in the middle of quarantine. I don't know when the next time I will see you in person is. We calculated that like this is the longest that we've gone without seeing each other since 2012. So I was just having a lot of emotions, basically.
Yep. Yeah, so a lot of, especially when they get to like later in the book too, when they're talking about like when they talk about starting the podcast and like starting a business, like those pieces of it too. Because like I think, you know, like the idea that you have big friendships, like they're like I have other big friendships as well, and so like conceptually it's interesting, and they draw on that too. Like they keep circling back to like that big friendship, but they draw on the other friendships that they describe as their big friendships. But that whole like section of the book, I was like, wow, this is very close, very very close to home, and I have a lot of feelings about it. So,
right. I mean, it's not only that I don't know, that we have this experience of like making things together, but it's just, I mean, there's something so like foundational about making things together to our friendship, but also something about our personalities that I don't know. I think it was inevitable that we would start making things together because we're always like, here's this thing, we should talk about it. We should consume it together. We should, you know, or you said a funny thing and I take it to Twitter because I want to share it with people. So I don't know. There's something just about our friendship that exists on that plane of like that conversation and sharing with others and all of that stuff, if that makes sense.
And it's also, this is something that they talk about a bit with like big friendships, is yeah. So I think all of that is the spark piece of it that they talk about, like the way in which there's a similar to, like we talk about that all the time with like romantic relationships, but like the way that also exists with friendships, where it's just you, like there's a level of, you just click with someone and like that just there's that and that's there. I also think that there is this piece of like, part of that is, it's like meeting each other again, very similar to stuff that they were talking about in the book, but like meeting each other at this moment in our lives where we really truly had no fucking clue who we were as people. I mean, like, I don't know, I still who knows, but like definitely so much progress. We've made so much progress as individuals and as a pair in the last 10 years. But like, I think like there's that piece of it, and then it's also just like thinking about that too, like thinking about the ways in which it is incomprehensible to me now. Like it's really hard for me to think about that person, like who that person was before we became friends, and a lot of it is like the ways in which, like I think on some level that yes, all of the things that you're describing are things that I would say are things that are true about me, and like probably would have been true about me regardless in some capacity or another. Like there are other choices that I was making at around that time that led me to be this person that I am now. But I also think that like our friendship is part of that too, right? And so like that, like it's very intertwined. I'm like explaining this very badly, but like it is very intertwined. Like I don't know how to pick apart the ways in which I feel like, yes, that's just who I am, and also like, that's just who I am, but also like on some level that is who I am because of this friendship, like because yeah, like I don't know.
They're like giant chunks of who I am that, I mean, again, maybe it would have ended up this way anyway had I never met you, but that I can tie directly to my experience of my friendship with you. I mean, one that jumps to the top of my head immediately is travel. I had gone nowhere basically up to the point where I met you, and we went to Chicago together, like tied to a joint experience, and from there it kind of like just kicked off this whole thing where I was like, I want to see a lot of things, and a lot of times that like I want to see things was accompanied by you being like, hey, want to go here? And I would be like, yes, please. Like, I mean, and now I think about myself, and that's like one of my identifiers. Like, I love to travel or whatnot. But thinking about like, would that have happened, or would it have happened in quite the same way had it not been for our friendship? Like, I don't know. And so that is definitely the way that those kinds of things are very intertwined. And I think about, I mean, even on a smaller level, like speech patterns and things that we say, and like, things of that nature where like, this is such a Nicole thing, or this is so influenced by our conversation and our friendships that are like me now, and like, part of who I am, but also, I don't know, it's us.
Right. Yeah, like jointly true. Yeah. I also think it's funny because I think that I think that we are both fairly like dreamy people, but you are much more like practical and action oriented than I am. And so one of the things that I would say is that like I think that I don't know, we were talking at the beginning of this about like output. Like I have done and made more things guaranteed than I would have in like a world where like we weren't friends, because most of those things would have just like stayed in my head. Like they would have been like ideas that I had, and then like whatever. But I feel like I say them to you and you're like, okay, cool. Like, what do we do? Like, what's the first step? And then I'm just like, I have to like okay, we're gonna do something like that. Cool.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'm just gonna put it out there that we're on the same page that we should do this, but maybe, I don't know, next up is like to take the action. But now I feel like we should write a book. I read this book, I was like, you know what Nicole and I can do? Write a book. Just putting that out there. You heard it here first.
But also I grabbed I have my like stack of my notebooks right here, but I wanted to, at some point while you were talking, I forget what you said that made me think about it, but this is a contract that we signed in France. We were hanging out in Paris, like, how many years ago was this? This was 2014, summer of 2014. But it says, when Snark Squad makes all the monies, I hereby agree that we will go halvesies on the epic profits we will reap from this crazy successful endeavor. You have an AKA on there because before you were using your name on the internet. I just want to share that.
So it came from part of the reason, I don't know, part of the like narrative or their memoir is that they had a pretty big falling out as friends in this, and so they kind of track how that started. And part of it was they talk about how they were friends first, and then they started making stuff together without really thinking through like the implications of that. And like, obviously their podcast got pretty popular. They've got a book now. And so like the idea of like, how do we navigate being business partners and also friends? And so I sent Nicole a message. I was like, damn, we got one on them because you made that contract years ago. And that's when you like looked at him and you were like, yep, still got the contract. Probably drunk in a Paris apartment.
Definitely drunk. Guaranteed we were drunk. Yeah, 100%.
We got that covered. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely been like, as we make things together, like through Snark Squad, there's been like ebbs and flows for both of us, of like us participating, not participating, doing or not doing. But it's been so chill, I think, because probably because it is a hobby. We're not making the millions of dollars, but sure. I don't know. I feel like we have a pretty good understanding between the both of us of like how that will go. And I just don't, I mean, knock on wood, but I don't ever see that being like a cause of strife. And we have a contract, so it's fine.
Well, also we have a contract. It's and I shared it with the internet now too. So we have 12 witnesses.
Legally binding.
Legally binding contract. That Paris trip too. I do this all of the, I don't know, the friendship stuff. But like the thing about that Paris trip, and so when we had this conversation, I was flipping through that notebook, and it's like I was working on that trip, so I was going through the pages, and like every other page has like a work to-do list that I was doing, but then like the next page after the work to-do list is like brainstorming about like recaps we were going to do or like whatever but it's like us sitting, part of our friendship, to go back to your earlier point about like there's a level in which this was all like this is baked into who we are and then who we are together, that like we were on an international vacation together and we were still like in our downtime, we're like, okay, so like what can we make, what are we gonna do? So
I love that for us.
Oh yeah, I regret nothing, to be clear. I don't look back at this and think, oh man, I'm so sad that we didn't, I don't know, be outside.
Well, we're outside plenty.
We're outside plenty.
I mean, also probably me right now is sad we weren't outside more, like in retrospect, right. Because
as soon as I said the words be outside, I did feel like a tiny pang of sadness, but unrelated. It's not that trip's fault. That I feel that way now.
I miss travel so much.
It's like physically painful, like looking back at old like travel photos and stuff. It's like,
I think this upcoming weekend would have been BookNet Fest, I believe.
Ooh. Oh man.
Raise a glass, everybody.
We're the at least second time this year that we hung out.
At least. Yeah.
It's the second guaranteed hangout, the second like planned hangout that's about to pass. That isn't hangout that isn't, I guess. So
I think back to, I don't know why this just made me, this is probably like a pointless, I don't know, part of the story, but I think back to like this idea of us being like dreamy and like sometimes like planning a bunch of stuff. We have like, even from the beginning of Snark Squad, we had this like Excel sheet or like a Google Doc of like pipe dreams, basically, where you're just like putting all of the things that we would do if we had millions of dollars and all the time in the world. But in those early days, a lot of times it wasn't even as much like planning, where it would be like on Twitter, like we should go do that. And then we'd be like, yeah. And then like we would just be on a trip. Something like that. Yes. Like just like the immediacy of being like young and carefree, I guess. I don't know. But that was like such a big part of our early friendship, was just like that.
We should go somewhere and then we just did it.
And we just went.
This is not just a pandemic thing. Like we've talked about this recently in like different contexts too, where it's like as we've gotten older and like have jobs and like lives, like have like stable jobs that we care about not losing. I suppose like we had jobs then too to like pay for stuff, but it was also like, I don't care. I don't really care about this job. So things were different. Things were a little bit different then. But yes, now even pre-pandemic, it got to be a point where it was like, okay, it's like a thing. If we're gonna plan a trip now, there's a little bit less somebody tweeting about, here's a picture of a place, and somebody being like, let's go there. Both of us booking our plane tickets within the next 10 minutes. Unfortunately,
Jocelyn said it's sad girl hours, and I honestly thought that we were going to log on and go live and I would just start crying because I miss you. So I feel like we did so good waiting until like minute 40 for sad girl hours. Hello.
Yeah. We did great. It's been sad girl hours all the time now. So, you know.
And then a question, did you guys become friends via BookTube? Which we did not. Okay. So we became friends because back in the early days of 2000 and I started blogging in 2009. Is that right? Yes. And we met 2010.
Yes.
So back in those days when everybody and their mother had a personal blog, and that was like the thing to do, we both had personal blogs. Raise a glass.
To the millennial personal blog heyday.
I had a personal blog. Nicole had a personal blog. And we met on a website called 20 something bloggers, which was just like basically a forum for people in their 20s who were also personal bloggers.
It was a Ning based thing for those of you who know about community forum platforms.
Yeah. So that's where we met. I don't even, and it's one of those things that like we met a bunch, like it was a group thing, like you said at first, like where it was a bunch of us who had like met and were on each other's blogs all the time, reading and commenting and things of that nature. The first time that I remember, like we talked about this a little bit like recently, but like the first time that I remember being like, oh my gosh, I really want to be that girl's friend. like like the way that I don't know, I like slipped in there is that you had posted in the forum and you were like, I have this post that I wrote that I really would like somebody to like read and edit if anybody's up to it. And I was like, oh, me, I'll do it. I was like, I really want to be that girl's friend. And so you sent me the post and I like made like edits or whatever and sent it back. And I think from there was kind of when we kept like talking more one-on-one from what I remember. But I don't know, you probably have like a different memory point where it was like, you know.
I have no recollection of that ever happening. So to be fully transparent, everything about that is on like all around, yes. Like I'm confident that happened. That is, both of us as people, like really well. That's like when I think about who we were at that moment in time, I'm like, yeah, we're those people. I mostly remember you from the chat, from the 20SB chat. Where, and it's less, I have less of like I don't have as good of a like concrete specific example. It's more just that you were always really funny and that I always felt like you were, this is also very funny to me now, but that I just was like, she's like really wise. she like knows how to be a person. She like has her shit together. That is how I would have described you at 22. And again,
I would have been like, she is so fun. Like that girl knows how to have fun. Oh my god, she goes on so many adventures.
And the other thing too, 20SB days, because you were Rox and Lore on the on 20th. You were two people. So there was that whole the dynamic of who are we talking to? Is this Roxanne or Lorraine? It's always Lorraine. It's not Roxanne.
It was like Roxanne like one time, and then she was like, bye. Yeah, so we met through blogging. And then like 20SB had like a summit, like a conference basically for bloggers one year in Chicago. And that was the first time that we met in person. So
it was so fun. It was grossly over-invested in. I will say, so like as a consequence of a lot of the people who ran 20SB were also like professional community managers in like early days of doing that thing, but like they were all really good at their jobs, and so they were able to get a ton of like big ticket sponsors for this event, but for an event that like really couldn't actually deliver on like the numbers to offset the kinds of like swag and sponsorships and stuff that we got from like I still have like we got these the tote bags.
I still have the Gap jeans that I got for free, like
the free Gap jeans. Yeah, there was just like a taco truck. So there was an actual taco truck. The Gap Day lunch was a taco truck sponsored by Gap, but then also another truck that was Gap and that was like giving out like coupons so that we could go to the Gap the next day to get free jeans. So there, yeah, it was the swag from that event. I bought a laptop for like at like 25% off from the Lenovo sponsorship. So yeah, all around great experience, but I am not surprised it didn't.
It never happened again. Yeah. This is like early enough. I mean, not in internet days, but like early enough, I don't know, I guess in our experience of the internet and like millennial culture, that when we were like introducing ourselves to other people, like family, non-internet people, like we were like, what do we say? How did we meet? Like, we can't just say like on a forum. Well, maybe that was more like mine too, because I feel like even then you were more on the internet and like to your family or whatnot, where I was like
writing. First internet friend in an offline capacity when I was in 6th grade.
Yeah. So. I was writing an anonymous blog that like nobody knew about. But I mean, even then, like you were really into internet culture, but it was still that mentality of like, if you met people off the internet, it was creepy. Like, you know.
One of our mutual friends, Shelly, from that time. I mean, still we're still friends with Shelly, but we met also in this same capacity. She lived not that far from me, like 4 or 5 hour drive from where I lived, and so at one point I went to stay with her, and she lives like a really rural town in Illinois, and that was the peak, my like peak experience with this sort of phenomenon of like, how do we talk about this? Because she also had a less, like, people knew that she had this blog, I think, like most of her friends like were dimly aware, but like the idea, I was like staying in her house. People are like, I don't like, what is going on here? So yeah.
I mean, we as in like the group of booktube friends that I have now that were the closest, we went to Connor's wedding this year. Oh my gosh, that was this year. I just want to throw up. Anyways, moving on. This year we went to Connor's wedding, and it was still like a big deal. Like people were like, how do you guys know each other? And we would be like, well, I think he told everybody we were part of a book club to make it easier, but it was not easier because everybody's like, his book club wedding, and we were like, it was a very wild experience.
Book club, okay?
We're really invested in each other's lives. Oh man.
Yeah, because it's like a destination wedding too. It's not like yeah. Good. Oh man. Love internet friendships. You, I think, are the person who first introduced me to the idea. You said something a long time ago to the effect of like, I've paraphrased it so many times now that I forget the particular wording you used, but that like the idea that we would find our people through like the random chance assignments of geography is so absurd. Like, it's fucking ridiculous to assume that like that is how you would find your people. Like especially like being deeply online people. The older I get, the more I'm like, yeah, the truer, like that felt super true to me, I don't know, like 10 years ago, but it feels even truer now. Even like I have you know, people here, but also my life here is very, you know, internet, you know.
You're there because of the internet.
I'm here because of the internet, and all of my closest friends here are people who are also transplants, who like are also here because of the freaking internet. So, you know, yeah.
Oh man.
Wine is gone, but I raise a glass. Wine. Jordan's drinking wine and not
warm White Claws. Jordan, what happened to your White Claws? Yeah, I saw Jocelyn say like way earlier in the chat that she was also like, I don't know, joy media and then like horror. Which is like a phenomenon that I've seen other people talk about, how like horror is like a thing that they want to consume now, which is not something that I ever consume. But I think that my equivalent of that is like police procedurals. I don't know why. I just want to watch like procedurals and mysteries and people solving things. I do know why. It's such a simple format, and you just have a problem and you solve it, and then you move on, and that's it. And the sort of like stress of those things is very like insular in the episode. It doesn't carry over. They're not big defined arcs always in like these sort of procedurals, which is what I like. That's what I want. I don't want this like big complicated story. I
don't have the brain space.
No, thank you. I don't want to carry anything over.
Do you ever get buzzed in a chat and feel like, yes, but yes, 100%. I don't know that I had ever had that experience before quarantine, but in quarantine, I have had that experience 100%.
Okay, so after we, I have this booktube club thing, the book club, that one, the book club that I have. After we have
the book club.
After we do our monthly live show, we always like stay on and just stay talking, and we just like catch up and whatever. And one of these book clubs, we decided we were going to drink for the live show. It was a selection, so we had to drink, and then we just kept drinking afterwards. And we like stopped at like 7, but then I was just like, what do I do now? So, well, actually, Nicole was like, "Hey, I hate this. What do we do now? Like, I'm drunk, and like, what do we?" And so we just watched John Tucker Must Die together. Oh, that was good.
That was a great experience. I was surprised by how well John Tucker Must Die held up. So I'm just gonna put that out there. You enjoyed that movie as a teen. It is not terrible. So look, you know, that's the best I can promise about anything that I enjoyed as a teen. I'm like, you know what, that one, not terrible. So
lots of people buzzed and at a party in the chat.
Yes, welcome to a party.
Sad girl happy hours.
Every night in my apartment, sad girl happy hour. No, that's a lie. No. I have not been drinking alone in my home, to be clear. On like this, I am now, I guess, technically drinking alone in my home, but because we're doing this.
Yes, only technically alone.
Yeah.
And we made this at a nighttime hour to maintain social norms that mean nothing.
Irrelevant. But we're doing it. See, it's nighttime. We're partying. We're at a party. We're at a party right now. It's fine. It's totally the same experience that I would have been having before. Sad girl hour is really
getting to you. I'm trying to think of what else.
Yeah, what other stuff have you been watching and reading?
You've been watching way more than I have.
I haven't been watching quite as much lately. I have been on like a Disney princess kick, sort of accidentally. It started, I was like on just Disney. I don't know. Sometimes my decisions my viewing decisions are guided by this awareness that I have all these subscription services that I'm paying for, and I'm like, well, I gotta use that one. And so it was like that kind of thing where I was like, okay, Disney Plus. What do we got? What are the options? And like while I was scrolling around, I realized that I never saw The Princess and the Frog. So I was like, okay, I'll watch this movie. And so then I got to have like 10 years late to the party, the experience that everyone else had 10 years ago while watching it when she turns into a frog. And I'm like, wait, she's a fucking frog the whole movie. So I messaged you about that when that was happening, because that was like a whole journey that I went on. And then belatedly was like, oh yes, I remember people talking about this, but you know, because I didn't see the movie, it didn't like have anywhere to live. Oh no, I know why I decided to watch it. It was because we had just been talking about it. because of the picture that you sent me for
Is
the
that why
Disney
you
download.
watched? I thought you watched it first and then I sent the picture.
No,
but
no,
I guess
no. That was part of why you had it was like super close together. But it was like, I was on Disney Plus, and then I saw it. I was like, why would it even occur to me that I had never seen this movie? That was
I
why.
was on TikTok, and the kombucha girl did a TikTok where, because somebody left her a comment that was like, "You look like the girl from The Princess and the Frog," and so she's like looking at the comment like, "Are you stupid?" And then she cracks up and she's like, "Oh, the white girl." I also have not seen this movie, so I had no context for who this person was. So I literally like Googled the white girl Princess and the Frog. And it turns out Tiana's best friend is a white girl. And I found this picture of them together. It's probably like the, I don't know, only picture of them together. There weren't very many. And I just sent it to Nicole and I was like, next time we're at Disney, this is like what we're dressing up as these two characters. Like, I know nothing about them, but look at how cute they are.
They're adorable. This is perfect.
Right.
This is a Disney bounding outfit. Yes. So then I was like, well, okay, I don't know. I should just watch it. And then from there, it's just been like, now I go open up Disney Plus and I'm like, okay, what Disney princess should I watch now? Tangled was the last one. They feel different as an adult, I will say. Like Tangled, I could not get over how much they don't address the fact that she was abused. She's a child abuse victim. Like what is going on here in this movie? Because she's like perky. I don't know what's happening. But then Disney Plus was like, would you like to start watching Tangled the TV show? So I've been gradually making my way through Tangled the TV show. Never would have guessed that would have been a choice that I would have made in 2020, but
I love that for you.
No. It's one of to this point about things where my brain is at. I'm like,
okay.
Yeah,
I have a question. Not related to Disney princesses at all, but I recorded a video today. And I'm doing my unhaul, so I'm going through all my shelves or whatever and deciding what to get rid of because I'm getting rid of some of these books. And I got up to the Game of Thrones books. So I started I'm keeping them obviously, but I started talking about like reading Game of Thrones and our experience with that. And then I was like, in talking about it, I realized how often I think about rereading those books, even though my experience of reading them was genuinely painful at points, like painful. But the number of times I think I should just reread them is really like astounding. And I know you've had the thought too about rereading them. So how close are you to being at the point where you're going to reread those books?
That's a great question. It's been a while since I've had the thought, so I feel far, but I also feel like something in my soul is telling me that in winter,
Ooh,
right? Like get into winter and I'm in Montana, we have winter, and I'm not gonna be able to go anywhere. I can't even go outside to the degree that I can currently at least go outside. I really truly will be confined to this box, even more than I am now. And something about that feels like it'll feel right. Like it'll feel like
Game of Thronesy.
It'll feel time to listen to those books again. I don't know. How about you?
I would not have thought that I was very close there. Until I picked up the books and I was holding them and I was like, I could read these.
Yeah.
I could read these. I don't know why. I mean, the books themselves are built to be reread because they're so dense and detail heavy, and there's so many different points of views and things to connect that those are the experiences that are best to reread. But I don't know why I feel so compelled to reread them when the first time around I kind of hated reading them. So what is broken in us?
What's happening?
I don't know.
What's going on? What's going on up here that's driving us to be those people? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Cannot say. But I do feel like it's probably going to happen, Yeah. I don't think I will ever. So for the podcast, I bought all 5 books on audio, and I also bought an ebook it was like a 5-book ebook. that was like the most merciful like expense, because that it was like, super discounted because it was all of them at once. And that is how I read them. I will probably never open that ebook again. Like that is, if I when I do go back to these books, it will be the audiobooks.
Yes.
But I don't know, man. I don't know.
I feel the same way about Buffy. But
Yeah.
when we finished Buffy, it took us years to finish recapping our way through Buffy, and we had a lot of, again, conflicting emotions while doing that experience. But when I finished Buffy, I was like, I will not rewatch that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so done.
Mm-hmm.
I was so done at that point. And it has only been, like, on the opposite end of this, it's only been like a handful of times over the last however many years since we finished watching that I've thought I could watch that again. Only a handful of times. And then I immediately was like, nah. So, but now every time I open Hulu, it's like there. It's like, we think you'd like Buffy. And I'm like, is it time? I don't think it's time still. I don't know.
Still no.
Would you rewatch it?
Yeah, it just has never occurred to me is the only reason I haven't. If I open Hulu, everything's listening to me right now. So whichever of my devices, if you want to like
FBI agent.
Yeah, if my FBI agent wants to plug that into my Hulu recommendations algorithm, I probably would click it. To be honest with you, that feels likely.
The other part of it, though, is that like Buffy is so tied to content for me that I would not know how to consume Buffy without making a content.
Okay.
Nicole's like, I don't care. Yeah, that's also a big difference between you and I.
Oh man. Oh, to this, yeah, Splash Mountain. There's a question in the chat about Splash Mountain. So, as far as I am, like, only half follow what's going on here, but Splash Mountain is being rethemed to be Tiana, have her, so she will have a ride, and that's exciting. It is not in any way connected to Space Mountain. It's different. They're two different rides. That's it.
And Disney World is better than Disneyland.
Wow!
Sneak attack!
Over here. I'm minding my own business. End of friendship, end of live show. Bye. Well, yeah. Jordan loves that too for me, but I honestly I don't remember now. Time has lost all meaning. What were we talking about when you said that, Jordan? 6 minutes ago.
Disney Plus and Tangled.
Yeah. It's been fun watching Tangled. I started reading. What did I start reading today? I wanted to tell you because With the Fire on High. I started reading that today, so I'm like halfway through that. And I'm very much enjoying it. It's giving me a lot of feelings. I already teared up like before this we got on because I was reading that. So
yep. Big cry at anything energy these days.
Also that.
I mean, to be fair to this book, it is very emotional.
It's not just the cry at everything energy, but also cry energy.
I am spending this weekend trying to finish a bunch of books that I'm in the middle of because there's like literally maybe 20 to 30 books that I'm in the middle of just over the course.
30?
Books, I mean, over the course of the last few months that I would just start a book and be like, nah, not it, and like put it aside. I mean, and some of them are just like, I made it a couple chapters. I had a handful of audiobooks where I had like 4 hours left of the audiobook, which on 2-speed is nothing. So I finished 2 of those today. I'm trying to finish off 2 more and just like, let's finish this off, man.
Let's get these out of here. Yeah.
Take that up to 2.5 speed and let's go.
Yeah, we were talking about the Game of Thrones, the A Song of Ice and Fire books. That was the fastest I've ever listened to an audiobook for sure was those books.
3-speed.
There was a chunk there where like a couple times I was cutting it super close to when it was time to record, and so I was up at like 3.5 for sections, and it was just like, fortunately, because I also had the ebook too, right? So like both of them happening at once was helpful for the like ultra fast listening to the audiobook. But if I were just doing one of those things by themselves, I wouldn't have been able to focus enough to get through and be ready to record in time. But
the one book, I don't even remember which book specifically, but it's the one that it was like the book that got broken in two, so it tells the timeline.
4 and 5.
By the time we got to the second one, I was like, speed this shit up. Like, I've already been here. Like, I already know. Like, let's go. So I listened to a lot of that on 3-speed.
Bad. Upsetting. Gonna dive back in 3 months when it gets cold.
I have a feeling we'll just start and be like, nah.
Probably that's actually what will happen. Other thing that my other like recent, I started rereading the Crazy Rich Asians books. I read the first 2 and then I stopped, and I, not for any real I don't know, I just like had to move on to other things. And I finished the second one, and then had to read like nonfiction book club book, and then like library books are coming up and whatever. So it's got, at some point I will reread the third one, just because that's like, I feel like that was a where my brain, also in the like where my brain is at category of things.
I have to start, not this next podcast episode, we're going to do something else, but the one after that, we'll probably do this Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, which is something that we said we were going to do months ago. You read the first 2. I did not even start rereading them, but it's one that I'm putting off because I know I will like it. I know it doesn't make sense. And it's just like, I want to be like ready. I'm so excited to reread them, but all that we have now are sad girl hours. I'm like, no, like I want to have fun.
I want to be ready to be happy.
Right. Those books are really sad and nothing happy happens very much, but I know that I will enjoy it, and I just want to be like in a good spot to read them, but a good spot never happened, so I never read them. Yeah. And here we are.
I feel like I'm going to have to, because we were going to do this back in May, I read the first 2 books back in May and then didn't get to the third one. And I feel like at this point, I'm going to have to reread the first 2. Like, it's like too much time has passed. I no longer feel ready to jump into, like, I know the story, it's a reread, but I feel like I have to go back now. Like, I can't just start the third one.
I don't actually think this is true, but I'm claiming credit for my influence on you as a reader.
No, that's fair, because I feel like my natural impulse is much more towards completion, right? And so there is, even when I say this, there is a part of my brain that is bothered by the fact that at the end of this, I will have read the first 2 books one more time than the third book. That annoys me. Like that does actively annoy, like I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to accept it and get over it. But there's like a part of my brain that's like, oh, no, don't like it.
Girl, no. The number of times that I've read the first book in the Fairyland series, far like twice the number of like how many times I've read the rest of the series. Like I don't care. Literally don't care. I mean, books that I've started in the middle of, a ton. Series that I've started like during and I watched like 1 season of, and I was like, wow, that was enough, and I abandoned and moved on, a ton.
Mm-hmm. No, I can't. Like, my brain is like, no, you have to get to the end. No. Am I unhappy? Yes. Doesn't matter.
My brain goes, oh, we're done, delete, and like moves on and does not care. I love that for me.
I did Harlots. I forgot to tell Lainey this, because Lainey mentioned this, that she didn't actually, Lainey had recommended Harlots to us on a podcast episode. And I told her that I started watching it, and she was like, she then did not reveal to me when she recommended it in the first place, but that she rage quit the final season. And I also stopped watching. And so now I'm like, I want to ask her. It just like slipped my mind. But I do want to ask Lainey what made her stop. But something happened at the end of an episode, and I did the like looking at the spoiler checking thing, and I saw where it was going, and I was like, fuck this. Fuck you. A character that I like is being killed off. And I'm like, the thing that made me mad was one character who I have mixed feelings about is just making very bad choices. And I was like, I just can't watch you keep making these bad choices. It's like, I feel personally attacked by watching you make these bad choices. I don't want to put myself through this. And then while I was trying to figure out what happened with her, I looked up that somebody else dies. So this is, I feel that I successfully dodged actual spoilers, but somebody dies, and I was like, fuck this, I'm not watching. So yeah, Deboki, rage quit before you started. Yeah, that's
so. Yeah. Harlots was one of the shows that I started also, and I didn't know you had started it. And I used started very loosely here because I watched one episode and I was like, not really into it. I've watched one episode of Harlots. And this is making me feel great about that decision to not keep going. Because
the first season was a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoyed the first season, but then I don't know, after that it's like they made a lot of choices that I think are the wrong choices. I don't want to go in there and
I mean, that's usually why I don't rage quit, but I just am very easily, if it's not going the way that I want, I'm like, okay, then I'm done. Like, right. You can keep going, you can keep doing you, but I'll be over here. Like, that's how I feel about TV shows, like, very easily, like, I'm done here. Mm-hmm. And when I feel like a personal sense of completion, like, I feel great moving on. Like, I have had my fill and I can leave now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No.
I love that for you, but I can't really, can't connect to that.
So this idea of like quitting things, Jocelyn and I started rereading the Fairyland series in quarantine, like back when it started in March. And I made it through 3 books of the 5, maybe, or 2.5 or something like that. And then like stopped reading for months. So yeah. Yes, Jocelyn, we should finish rereading that series. I also want Nicole to read it eventually, probably for content.
We talked about it. Yes, that's basically the reason the only reason I haven't is because we keep putting it off as a for content thing. There's like, well, I know I'm going to have to do it for content. So this is a thing that we do to ourselves / each other as well. Is stuff like that where we know it's like a big things that each other loves, right? Like where it's like, okay, well, this is obviously a podcast episode, so I'll wait until it's my assigned reading, and then I'll do it. My homework early. I'm sure I'm gonna enjoy it. Like, to be clear, like none of this is me being like, I don't want to do that, but there is the part of my brain that's like, well, that homework is coming, like that I'll get that homework later. And
this is something that is probably only interesting to me, so I'm going to share it, obviously. But the mechanics of like doing this thing of like recapping and doing the podcast is so wild to me, because obviously it is something that we enjoy and we enjoy doing and we enjoy putting out there. But the way that like if it's podcast homework, I don't want to do it. And I save it for the last minute. And then a lot of times, like, I end up enjoying the thing that we picked. I love the conversation that comes of it. And if I had just started it earlier, my life would have been better. But no, I cannot. Right. I cannot do it. I don't know why my brain is wired that way. But, like, let me tell you that if there is a podcast episode of something, I probably finish consuming the thing, like, an hour before, if I'm lucky. Sometimes, like, half an hour, 10 minutes. Like I like stopped, closed the book, and jumped on to record a podcast episode. So yeah, we're doing great.
Yeah. Yes. Also +1 to all of that. That has been my experience as well. So,
it's like I think about it a lot too, in terms of like recapping TV shows and just how every show has its own like recap experience. And it's like different to recap, and the ways that recapping changes a show, which is, a lot of our mixed experience with Buffy, for instance. I think a lot about Game of Thrones, which we actually never finished recapping the last season. I think we have the last 2 episodes to go.
Oh
and
my God.
we just stopped and we were like, no, we were like, no, thank you. We will eventually finish that off and like close it out. Who knows when? But the like Game of Thrones recaps, a single recap is like it could have taken me anywhere from like 4, 5, 6 hours to finish one single Game of Thrones recap. Whereas like a Charmed recap,
and the final season, those are like longer. Those were longer episodes too. So yeah, yes,
no,
yeah. Yes, the amount of time that things take to recap, and like we talked all the time too about ways to make them shorter, and it just never works, never panned out that way, because it's like, especially because a lot of the stuff that is like interesting to write down is the minutia, and so like, you have to make it make sense to that. Like the standout thing that I want to tell you about in this scene is. I'm like blanking on any good examples, but is like what was in her bag. She had a stupid thing in her bag, and like that was really funny to me. But like in order to even get to a place where I would tell you that, why am I commenting on that if I'm not also telling you everything else that happened in this scene? And like.
we used to do these like end of year like wrap ups on the blog where we would just like do like how many posts we did, and like I would run all of the posts through like a word cloud sort of thing to get like the most repeated words and things of that nature. I don't think I've ever like tried to calculate how many hours are like at snarksquad.com. I don't think I ever will, because I'd probably be really depressing in the way that like calculating your age backwards or like thinking about things that happened over a decade ago is like really depressing. But it's a good amount of hours of our life at snarksquad.com.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, a lot of hours of our lives. Snarksquad.com dashboard. Yeah. Writing those recaps. It's weird too. The TV show recaps, I think, have been really just overall, like looking at them in totality, just like a really interesting experience because of how different they've all been. Like I feel like even with the books that we read that we were recapping in the very beginning they were all slightly different experiences. Like I think, like you said, like the Nancy Drew books were the unexpected gem to recap, and like, you know, like Boxcar Children were like kind of just like depressing, and like it's, you know, it's not
fun.
It's fun. Like, this is just sad and upsetting, right? So you have that kind of scale of things, and everything else kind of existed sort of somewhere on that spectrum between those two things. But I feel like the spectrum is wider with I mean, I guess we've recapped more TV shows, but like it's not just that there's more data points. Like it really does feel like a broader range of the kinds of experiences. And like one of the things that is so wild and depressing about the terrible final season of Game of Thrones is that like I would have put like the early seasons recapping Game of Thrones was on this whole other end of the spectrum, where like the idea of sitting with it and taking all of this time with it was like enhancing an experience, right? It was it was like a better experience because we got to like really sit with and like notice everything. And like sometimes people who read the books were kind of annoying in the comments, being like, well, there's also this detail that you didn't notice, but like it was fun still to be like, there's so much going on here to unpack. And then it was bad, but
yes. I think that probably part of what accounts for that spread is that a lot of those books that we read as children are coming from like, they're starting on pretty equal footing of like quality. I would say like there weren't any that were like, this is impeccable children's literature. Like it was all the same to a certain degree. And so the recap experience didn't vary as widely. Where we're doing TV shows, we're recapping a ton of bad TV shows that are really enjoyable experiences that make for really funny recaps, like Pretty Little Liars. Like amazing. Like I love
that.
Huh?
You Didn't even finish that either.
No, but I love those recaps so freaking much. They're so much fun. That show is absolute garbage. And then you have something like the early seasons of Game of Thrones, which were like really well done. And like you said, had all of the stuff to unpack. And so that makes for a different recapping experience and a different recap. And you've got all of this other stuff in the middle in terms of quality. You have something like Buffy that varied so widely from episode to episode just on quality. And so the experience of criticizing that was also really wild because you had people that just loved Buffy as an entity. When you're breaking it down and you're like, well, this one sucked. Wow, people did not like that. So that experience is different. Yeah.
Anything ever sucked on Buffy. Yeah. Well, unfortunately for those people, lots of things sucked on Buffy. So I'm not sorry.
Still, that's the hot take that I will defend for my early 20s.
Yeah. My, my younger self, my 20-something self, and all her hot takes. If anything, she was too nice to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, not Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the character. I stand by most of my defending her opinions too. So I can't help it. It happens. It just
I know. I can't. The people who don't like Buffy, the character, I
don't know what it's like to be so wrong, to like move through the world being so wrong. I don't know, Yeah, anyway, well.
Jordan says she rage quit True Blood in the final season. You made it a long time. I think I quit True Blood in maybe the second or third season.
I'm Googling how many 7 seasons? I see. Okay, that is the I could never.
Jordan, just finish it.
I would have to. I would be mad the whole time, but I could not get to the 7th season and not just finish it. Like,
okay, Jordan, what do we have to do to convince you to finish it?
How many boxes of White Claw should we ship you to get you ready to prep you for the experience?
I'm trying to think of something that I genuinely rage quit and that it wasn't just me losing interest like I do. Like something that I was like, no, I'm upset, and I just never went back to.
I actually, to be clear, that is definitely not this. The Harlots thing, I guess, is the closest that I've come, but it's also, even with that, there's a level of losing interest, interest waning, and then it's a tipping point into all right, fine, whatever. And that show just has fewer seasons. They're short seasons, so there's I don't feel quite the same level of commitment. I also feel in the same way that you are currently in the middle of 20 to 30 books, it's still on my Hulu continue watching, right? So there's a non-zero chance that I will at some point finish it.
No. Not after you spoiled yourself and don't do it.
I might do it.
A lot of times when I have these experiences where I'm watching something and I'm like, ooh, this is bad, I convince myself that I'm not quitting, that I'm just pausing because I will eventually recap it on the blog. I'm that's a good recap show.
British Skins is the first experience that I ever remember having with rage quitting a show, and I actually did. I did not watch the series finale after Freddie died. I was like, no, fuck this show. They added a very an incredibly violent and gruesome murder of one of these teenage characters, and it came very from nowhere in this way that I was what? And it was basically resolving a love triangle too, was a big part of why they did it. It was just no, I can't Yeah, my that's an opinion of my 22-year-old self. Probably would have been, yeah, about 22, somewhere in there. That I'm like, yeah, that I stand by that. I stand by that decision.
I have a like I this is gonna drive you pretty wild, but I have the book Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I quit it, and not rage quit. It was just like I was so bored I couldn't, and I had 50 pages left of the book. I still have that book somewhere in this house where I only have 50 pages left of that book, and I was like, no, I'm too bored. I'm not gonna do this. And I mean, like, I could have just finished it and marked it as read, but I could not make myself do it.
Yeah, sometimes your brain just won't let you, and that's valid too.
Thanks.
I've opened so many tabs. I've Googled so many things in the hour and a half that we've been talking.
Jocelyn rage quit season 3 of Stranger Things. She watched 2 episodes and hated them. My partner watched the rest of the season. I just joined him for the last episode. I haven't made it. We're recapping Stranger Things too, sort of, on the blog. We were, and we kind of let that one go. It's not one that I'm currently trying to make my way through, but we will eventually. But we started season 2, so that's where I'm stuck right now.
I never even started season 2. Like, I watched the first season and I enjoyed it, but I just never felt like moved to watch the second season. I just was like, hey, that, like, you told, like, that was a story.
You told the story, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that watching the first couple of episodes of season 2, I was like, this is a new story. And like, you already told the other one and it's done, and I don't know how I feel.
Yeah. That was why I did. My roommate at the time started watching the second season and like had the first episode on like while I was in the room, and it was like this thing where I was like, you've started a new story, and like some of it was that I had not actively chosen that I'm now going to sit down and watch this. Like, it was on like in the background, and just something in my brain was like, okay, I'm like trying to watch this, but like I didn't really want to be watching it. And so then that like created this space of distance. And so then I was like, I don't care. Yeah. And like it was filed away in my brain as at some point I would like to finish watching that show, but it's never come to fruition. See, I do a lot of that too, though, where I'm like, yeah, like I'll get to that. Will I? Will I get to that?
That's how I ended up with 20 books that I started that I convinced myself I would come back to at some other point. And then I just keep starting books and like, not right now. I'll come back to that one, and I like move on.
And then you have 20 books.
-2. I finished 2 today, everybody.
So that's a big day. It's a big achievement, big accomplishment. So proud of you for that.
I got nothing else.
Yeah, I got nothing else. Nothing else I'm particularly watching, enjoying. I mean, I'm sure there are other things, but to recall them would require a grasp on time that I simply do not have anymore. That is beyond me. So anyway, well, thanks for hanging out with us. This was fun and weird and disorganized, but you guys are great. I'm just really glad I got to see your face.
That girl hour. I miss you so much.
Fine.
I hate it here.
I hate it here. I fucking hate it here.